because I'm going to, oh, thank you, Eva, for getting the recording going. I'm
Yeah,
going to,
sorry about that. A couple people who said they couldn't make it. And our last recording is from, I think, 2 months old. So I said,
oh,
well,
yeah.
we'll record this one and see what's changed. I'm sorry I missed the wonderful dialogue in the beginning. That was
It's
very
nice to get to know
heartfelt.
each other. And I think what I like, I'm going to switch to some slides now that really, they're very basic, but they're just going to help us stay on topic and kind of get out all the information that all of you want to hear about. We are in various states now. I'll just kind of pick up where Brad left off. There were founders of several years ago, and it's been several years for the founding group. Josh and Meg, you've heard mentioned, Brad and Beth, and some other dear friends of theirs are kind of the first four households that are still in this project since it took off. And then I joined a few years ago. We've had a number of people since, and we've hit very recently some milestones that are helping us grow faster and get maybe through some of this hard phase. But I'm going to switch to sharing my screen so I can kind of walk you in an orderly way through what we're all about.
Oh, hey Lisa,
Yeah,
may I just jump in one
sure.
last thing and then I'll shut up, I promise.
No, I
For
like
those
I
of
like it.
you, for
Mhm.
those of you that don't know Lisa, that you haven't had that privilege yet, Lisa has dedicated her entire life to diversity and inclusivity and social justice. And I'm one of her biggest fans, and we're so lucky to have her. Lisa's a gift, and she's just made the world a better place already. And you ain't seen nothing yet.
Well, thanks. That's very sweet, and we have a little mutual admiration going, which shows you something about our community, right, and what we care about. That social justice aspect was me working for most of my career as a labor lawyer and working with a labor union representing employees and workers. Oh, I need share access, Eva, if you'd give me that. It's giving me a button, but telling me I still have to ask. Um, but one of the things I learned working for a labor union is that people who share values and commitments and goals and the desire to work together can bridge a lot of differences to accomplish and build groups for common purposes to achieve our common goals. And so I do very much bring the lessons of my career to what we're doing. It's a different kind of community, and we'll have specific purposes, but I really feel like what we do, oops, and I didn't put it on the way I wanted, but so let me stop sharing and fix the presentation. But I think it's all achievable. And there are a few obstacles we can't overcome if we start and focus on our common ground and our common visions. And so I'm definitely that kind of idealist, but also very practical, I think. That would be a little bit of what probably Brad is thinking of. And now I'm going to share the slides so we can kind of walk you through what we're all about. And that's actually like the first thing I like to talk about are what are the values of this community, because any co-housing community, there's quite a range. We all know from, like I say, the goats and chickens and farms and eco villages. We're in an urban location and we love nature, and that's a big part of who we are. But we're not particularly idealistic or ideological, I should say. What we believe in are all types of diversity. We absolutely envision being multi-generational. That's important for us. Um, I'll talk too about process, and some of Brad made some insightful comments we've learned through this process about where in the stage of developing this community do you see that diversity kick in, and it's been limited so far because we're in the early parts still, but we're getting to the points now where we have some options and opportunities. So you'll see that today. But diversity of all types, socioeconomic, family composition, racial, generational, sexual orientation and gender, all of those things. I haven't ever really seen any of our many meetings over the years where there was somebody who didn't fit in or couldn't be part of this community. So we're not particularly ideological on that. Welcome all. We believe, like we said, in community and living that community is good for us. And some of us, like myself, are really believe this is how we are meant to live in an interdependent way. And we foresee being active neighbors to each other, building a culture where people do care about each other, look out for each other, and where you get the fun things like skills transfer. I've joked with Kay, I think, about learning to knit and woodwork, like some of the things that she does. I was just cooking with some friends today, and I told them I can't wait to be in co-housing and teach people how to make tamales because it's too many for one single person to do. So you have to throw a party and teach others. There are all kinds of things that we can learn from each other and ways that we enrich each other's lives, right? And so we really are believers in community and the power of community to enrich your life, and we're dedicated to that. Sustainability is a big part of what we believe in. Our plans now, and I'll walk through the schematics and the architecture details with you. But we believe our plan will get us pretty close to net zero carbon emissions, if not all the way there. We won't have any gas lines on the property. We will generate our own solar power. We've hired a landscape architect who's specializes in microclimate appropriate landscaping, so really sustainable design permeates a lot of what we do. The location itself is designed specifically to feed this and our desire to live close to nature and to be active as we're able. It is also, I would say, well positioned for us to continue to live the good urban conveniences of life as well. And I say that as somebody who has moved closer and closer to the center of Denver in over 30 years and become more and more of a city person that I never started out as. And I've had to wrap my head a little bit about the suburbs and the mountains and the foothills. But that location, I think, has become something that is really almost the heart of how we want to live. Someplace with the kind of gorgeous access that we have and the views and really encourages an active outdoor lifestyle while still being attainable in the city. So looking at our design, you'll see more of these principles because all of these things that we value, communal decision making, we'll talk some more about that. And we're still building and beginning the part of the work that includes kind of more purposefully shaping the culture. We've wanted to wait until we had what we felt was a critical mass of people who intend to be future residents of this community. So there weren't too few of us shaping an idea of what it would be like to live there. So we're just getting into some of the what I think of as the fun, touchy-feely kind side of the work. How do we want to live? What do we expect of each other? And these values are kind of guiding us here. Consensus-based decision making is how we've been trying to operate to the maximum we can. And we've had some minimal exercises and training around how to communicate with each other. And I think we've been working well as a group of members making decisions. One of the biggest things, and Brad mentioned this, that's different about our co-housing project than many others is that we are developing this community ourselves. We have not hired a commercial property real estate developer. Most co-housing communities attach themselves to a developer or development and create a corner to carve out for a co-housing. We're doing that work ourselves with the advisors that we've hired. And that gives us more control over the design of the community, the eventual building materials and construction of the community. It gives us more control over ensuring that the design will reflect these values we have, instead of ceding that kind of decision making to a developer who might cut costs to maximize profit. Profit is the other thing a developer requires. There is a good 25%, sometimes more, of the price you pay for a home is the developer's profit when it's built. So we are doing the work that a professional developer might do for other communities so that we can actually expect to move in with some equity because of we won't be paying that markup. And that's one way we can manage this project, both for our values and for as much accessibility as possible. So the location I've mentioned, the co-housing, I encourage folks to go online. I'll give you the fly through an overview and point out some of the decisions that were made why the community is designed the way it is, with the features and amenities that it has. It's all designed to drive community and make it part of, make that social interaction part of your everyday life that is easy and accidental and just the very structure of the area you live in is driving people together, whether that's to commune purposefully or just because you have to walk into the common house to get your mail or whatever it might be. All of the aspects of the design are things that we have learned and our very experienced advisors. Some of the most experienced architects in co-housing are working for us, and they are very good at telling us when what they've learned from decades of experience in dozens of communities. Certain things sometimes are surprising, what kinds of pitfalls communities run into, what kind of design choices support community building goals, and which may surprisingly undermine those goals or drive people apart into separate activities, for example. So they've been really useful, and their experience is just really important. It has helped us reach this point. Eva alluded to it though, and we'll talk about this in a moment too. The design has changed from proposals of our advisors and professionals, because of the values and priorities of the members of this community. So one big change that happened in designing the floor plans was, Susan mentioned it too, we really brought, as members of this community, the desire to maximize accessibility now and for the future in every bit of our internal design. So what started as a pretty good design our architects had drawn up, we really kind of maxed out all the features we could, and made some changes to the layouts and placement of things in order to maximize the ability for all of our members to age in place. To anybody who suffers some changes over time at any age, who might need modifications in their home. Our homes will be prepared with so they need the minimum amount of modifications for anybody who's mobility challenged, or there are several kinds of conditions and needs that we took into account to make sure that that again, these homes will be useful for all of us and for many types of folks throughout our years. So really increase the accessibility features in all of the floor plans where we could. We believe in balancing private space, but I like to point out as well that many of us are planning on downsizing. Not because we need to or have to, but because we have so many shared amenities. And the kind of outlook of this group so far has been to maximize the good things we can get in a co-housing environment by sharing our resources. Folks who have lived, including some of our advisors, have lived for decades in co-housing, and they tell us that the economy of scale is real. You know, what you save in daily spending because you have these great shared grounds and the common house is really meaningful. Our architect Brian Bowen actually moved out of Wild Sage Co-housing in Boulder a couple of years ago after living there 18 years. And he was sharing with us a lot his sticker shock at how much it costs to maintain an individual household compared to sharing, you know, the all of the amenities we expect to have in our community. And that includes things like the guest suites in the common house. That allows us to consider downsizing and not having, for example, a guest room in our home that we use, you know, seldom for when people visit, because we'll have a couple of rooms for that purpose in the common house that, you know, residents can share and have access to. Things like having extensive exercise space. We're kind of active folks who want that to be something we can do. We won't have to have it in our home or have a gym membership if we have common areas, you know, devoted to workout spaces. So all of these elements are kind of in there because they reflect the values of this group and the priorities of what we want to our living to look like. So I like to point out, if you look online on the community page, you can see the different layouts of the individual units. There's also a sheet up there that talks about how the whole property is planned. And what I always notice right away is how much more, about 50% more um, square footage is devoted to common buildings than to all of the individual homes combined, which shows you, I think, that we really want to live with some conveniences and things that we share, and allow us to live more minimally or sustainably in our own individual units by sharing so much. So that's something to know. Garages are optional. They will be sold separately from the units. So some folks are planning to give up their cars. There is good public transportation in this neighborhood. The city of Wheat Ridge is actually revitalizing this particular neighborhood and 44th Avenue corridor. And their plans include improvements to pedestrian walkways, access to the light rail, which is about 3/4 of a mile from our property. The major traffic will be rerouted to a different street, and there will be more setbacks. So even the plan that the city has for this area is to make it friendlier to public transportation and to pedestrians. And it's already positioned with those, access to those features in mind. We do expect to have some electric vehicle, charging available, some car shares on the property, most likely for those who wish to give up individual vehicles. We've got some bicyclists in our community who are going to make use, I think, of those trails and bike lanes. And almost just across the street from our property is Prospect Park, which it's 39 acres. It's beautiful. It's got lakes and parks. It's also been upgraded recently by the city and expanded. And it includes 19 miles of trailhead that extend from Golden into Denver. So for biking, walking, hiking, all kinds of activities there. Point being, we are hoping to maximize all of the kind of benefits of that location and the features that we're planning, as well as in the neighborhood itself. Now I'm going to start this video for you, and this is the flyover that somebody mentioned. I think Michael mentioned that. This was prepared by our architects. So because so few of us have the ability to visualize an empty lot turning into this community of people and homes. And so these renderings are artistic drawings by our architect and our landscape architect to reflect what it will look like. And I'm going to back it up to the beginning, and I'm going to stop it just at a couple of points to show you a few design elements and things that were intentional. I just want to point out from the beginning that it's 3.3 acres. What that means in terms of space is it's a really good sized piece of land for 39 units that we envision on it. It was originally zoned industrial agricultural, and in August, our architects appeared before the Wheat Ridge City Council, and they unanimously approved rezoning for our plan, actually specifically for our community. So that has done a lot of things, including drastically increase the value of this land, which is important for members who are investing at this stage in this community. And I'll explain that as we get along to membership and process. But this, I want to show you, if you look at it, it extends almost 3 blocks deep here and a block wide. It is a very nice, spacious parcel of land. We could have almost 3 times as many units and still meet Wheat Ridge's density requirements for residential living, and we are not building out that land. In fact, the back parcel remains zoned as non-residential because it is not developed for living on. And you'll see this as we fly through. This front row is 44th Avenue, and that's where the common house faces. And everything kind of the community is behind that, away from that major road. And there's a ring road you'll see that goes through the property. So the main entrance is here on the as this west side of 44th and this common house building. The common house takes up a couple of floors in that front building, and there are some apartments over it as well. Now here I'm just going to pause it so you can see a little bit of this inner courtyard. And a big part of what we like to do in co-housing generally, and what our Blue Columbine members want to do, is share common meals and entertainment and activities. And so this large patio area is actually flows open from the main part of the common house so that we can have indoor, outdoor dining. We will have this set up for our parties, for our gatherings. We envision having a large screen that we can pull for movies on the green in the courtyard here. And then up here, you can see there's every apartment in the L-shaped flat that forms the part of this courtyard we're looking at has its own private patio space, as well as there being some pass-through space for folks to walk through those upper floors. So there are 3 stories on this L-shaped building where flats that are fully accessible by elevator are available in a couple of different sized 2 bedrooms, also some generous, lovely 3 bedroom flats. There are also a couple of units dedicated already to wheelchair accessibility. Now, just here, I'm going to stop and point out a couple of features. These common courtyards probably won't look exactly like this right away. The trees take some time to grow, and and the gardens as well. And we will decide as a community how much we contract out maintenance of things like gardens, and how much we wish to do on our own. We have seemed to attract a lot of gardeners and people who are willing to volunteer. So those may be areas where we save over professional maintenance. But I want to point out that there are this courtyard that runs through the middle of these residences is another big feature of this community. It's designed again so all the front doors face into the center, and you accidentally encounter your neighbors. There are nooks and crannies and little zones for all kinds of activities here. So a pollinator garden in one area, a reading nook with a bench in another, a little area with maybe some sand and that kids can play in. And as you go through on this left side, you'll see the carriage house units are 800 roughly 800 square foot 2 bedroom apartments that are on top of garages. And those, since they've been designed with a floor plan, have become popular units. Our builders assure us that for those who haven't lived in apartments or condos in many years, the noise reduction and the kind of materials that and manner of building these days, you don't hear a lot of noise, even from garages beneath you, from neighbors next door, from neighbors above or below. So that's one question we get a lot about is especially from folks who are used to single family home living. But we have some really great builder or designers who I think assure us these will be comfortable, soundproof, nice homes here. But these are one of the less accessible designs. I would say accessible by staircase. We have some folks, though, who have talked about putting stair lifts in or building even elevators up from the garage below. So just some ideas now that we're looking at what some of these units look like. Uh, Another outdoor eating space or hangout space here with a fire pit. I personally am going to vote for some sing-alongs around in here sometimes. And then there are toward the rear of the apartments and carriage houses, these are townhomes. They will be 2 bedrooms on one side and 3 bedrooms on the other. There are these small mini private yards there. And these are attached like row homes, but they are also staircase buildings, not served by an elevator, but they are built with this infrastructure for somebody to put one in. Um, Stopping here, just so you can see, we came through a little common building that was the bike barn and the bike workshop. Here you see this is the ring road that goes around the property, and then there are more of the common amenities like workshops, wood shops, gardens. This is the pool house and the biofiltered natural pool we would like to have here. Biofiltered natural pools are served with a minimum of chemicals, typically at the beginning of the season, and then filtered by the landscaping. So I understand they're a lovely experience. It'll be nice. Back there in the back of the property, this good-sized dog run. It's designed specifically with these berms. You see kind of these little hills and the vegetation. This is designed to muffle sound that comes from I-70, which is about a half a mile north of there. We've had some members actually go out and sound test that area, and the sound that comes from I-70 on our property is equivalent to a very loud dishwasher or something in your home or a loud appliance. It's not, if you live in a urban location now, almost anywhere in the Denver metro area, you can hear some street noise in your background generally, and it's pretty equivalent to that. It doesn't sound a lot like a roaring freeway is next door or something. And that's another question that comes up from time to time. The landscaping itself is designed to lessen the impacts that we might feel from being close to the freeway there. And then I stopped it here so you can see this back shared garden area. This is something also very important to a lot of our members and a lot of the folks that come around expressing interest is we expect we can have a couple dozen garden beds, probably some shared beds as well as individual beds for folks who are into gardening and want to have something to do. We envision the potting shed kind of and some spaces out there, but I think this is a big part of our community. Also, this is the ring road I've been mentioning that goes around, and we'll get a better look at it in a moment from above. Just wanted to point out a few things. It was created for specific reasons to make sure there's access for emergency vehicles, fire trucks, for example, to get to the property. An easy way for residents to circle the property for dropping off things, moving in day, whatever it may be. And as we go up and run this video, you're going to see we go around now the east side of the property, and there is a row on the eastern perimeter that is all garages, and they're built to be 3 garages at a time. They are tandem 2-car garages, so they're narrow. I think they're 12 by 24 or 16 by 20. Don't quote me exactly on how wide they are. I think maybe 12 by 24 is the right number. And but we will build as many as people are interested in, and it's possible we won't build all of the garages if there's not demand for all of them. We have talked about as a group that we didn't build enough storage into a lot of the homes, and so we'll probably purchase a few garages and build a few of those to convert them into storage units for those who wish to have storage on site. So you can see this ring road is designed again for a lot of reasons, including emergency access, but we've also given some thought to planning the surfacing so that there is hard surfacing appropriate for children's play around the back of the property. Since most of what we expect to do with this is to park our cars and then move in to the interior, we'll have some play spaces there. This is the rear side of the apartment building. And then this corner up front is more common house. We'll come around and you can see some of the upper spaces and the lovely views that we'll have. And there are some this here, just some outdoor patio spaces. I think this is library part of the common house. And up here is an arts and crafts room and maybe some laundry, and the guest suites are on this part of the building as well. There's some gym space down here. And then all of these roofs that you see on the south-facing sides, they're angled so they will maximize our solar exposure and covered with cells. So that's the fly-through, and we'll end the fly-through and skip ahead. Let me just ask there. I want to transition a little bit to talking about where we are in the process, but I just wanted to entertain any questions about the property itself, the plan, the designs, or any of the things that we've talked about before we turn more into process and what's ahead. Yeah, Michael.
Quick question about water. Is it city water? Is it well water? What are we looking at?
I appreciate you. That was my first question as well. What is our water source on this property? There is a well on the property, but it is served by municipal water. So I believe the city of Wheat Ridge is contracted with Denver Water. I think that may be their source, but it is served by municipal water. There are a couple of buildings now on the property. They're long defunct and boarded up, and they will be pulled down. I think one was a functional barn. There were some people living there, but for safety, we had them closed, and they will be demolished. But there is actually even a creek bed on this property, so but our water source is municipal.
Okay, and a quick follow-up. Has the committee explored any water catchment options, any cistern options, or anything along those lines?
So that's a good question. We had a couple people raise that, and we have water retention plans for the property. And in
Yes.
fact, the city required some special plans for a diversion, more for flooding and safety. But we haven't looked yet at cisterns or catchments. And that is one of the things that will happen, our architects will do during the demolition phase, which will get underway in a few months, I think, maybe when we get ready to closer to breaking ground. But what they will be doing is kind of assessing what is already available on that land in a deeper way than they've been able to survey so far, and will actually they have a term for it, but reuse anything that might be useful to be incorporated. So that could include a well, or there is a ditch that is sometimes served. Somebody abandoned it, and we inherit it as the owners now of this land. So they will be doing some deeper assessments of what we can reclaim from what is already there. But there have been wells and irrigation on that land. So.
And you know that the water table is so high. That's why we can't have basements.
Yeah, that's
The water level is that high. Uh,
right. I think it's like 8 feet, Brad. It's like pretty close. And so,
very close to the surface. Yeah.
right. So yeah, but that was my first question too. I always want to know, where are we getting our water, if we're building new developments, right? And yeah, where we have a municipal source and potentially more. All right, so where we are in the process is exciting. Actually, the last couple of months, this last summer, really it started in May when we met with the existing members, met with our architect team, reviewed some samples or proposals for our floor plans for the units, and then refined them. Had a whole day workshop working with them, and now we have floor plans for each unit that are specific. The In August, we went before the city council, and our architect team and the city's planning team had approved everything by this point. The city council was the formal last stage, but they made a wonderful presentation about what Blue Columbine will bring to Wheat Ridge, and how this plan will serve the community. I have to say, I felt like it was a little bit of a love fest. It was a unanimous vote of the city council. I'm still waiting to hear from a couple of them who might want to move in. And they really even literally thanked the planning staff for bringing this project to Wheat Ridge, and expressing appreciation for what Blue Columbine stands for, which is community, right? And I think one of the counselors even mentioned it speaks well of Wheat Ridge that we attract a group that wants to set up here and be an active part of the community and has such a responsible design. It was a long process, about 2 to 3 years working with the city between our architects and their planning department. But by the time they got everything planned and revised again, it sailed through the city council without objection. So that was really nice. It means that now where we are since achieving these milestones, is our professional team, our architect team needs to take the unit floor plans and the common house design and this whole plan that the city approved, and they need to convert it to what are essentially schematics for builders, right? This is where the lines are going to go, and this is where, and this is the exact square footage once you account for the building materials and whatnot. So they are converting to technical specifications for building. So we need those engineering diagrams for a few reasons: to identify builders and hire builders who will then build the plan, and they need to know what they're getting into. And we need those schematics to calculate the exact square footage, and that is needed for a couple of important reasons. We need to set final pricing based on the overall cost to build the community, and figuring out the per square footage kind of pricing requires these engineering diagrams, for lack of a better term, and I think that's what they call them, the engineering specs. And then we also have a realtor hired on contract to list this community as a new build community for sale on the MLS, when we have the legal square footage and the building plans and the pricing that flows from it. So we're in the phase for the next 5, 6 months or so for our team. That's how long they think it will take to convert everything that's been done at this point into those final documents. Meanwhile, we have a project manager who is a construction expert and development expert. He is essentially working with the draft materials and our architects to identify potential builders, potential finance banks and institutions who might want to finance this. And Brad alluded to this earlier, but we have constant where efforts where we can to attract investors, and which could lower the barrier to entry. But in order to achieve some of those things, we need to have firmer plans than we have now in this visual site development plan that the city has passed. So it's a matter of making everything final, technical. It then goes to the planning committee to be approved, and then we can list it, we can calculate the prices, and we can more intelligently meet with builders, finance institutions that would allow us to get the construction loan. So the way this project, I mentioned we are doing it ourselves instead of hiring a developer. What that means is that we are preparing a package of these schematics, as well as committed members, and our contributions financially become kind of like our community's down payment for the institution to then finance a construction loan. And if the project is, say, a $20 million project, and we're still working with draft numbers at this point, we need to come up with $5 to $7 million worth of that to obtain the loan for the rest of the construction. How we do that is a few ways. Part of the package includes the land itself. The way Blue Columbine is structured is we are currently two different LLCs. The community of Blue Columbine is the one that it will exist and go into and become Blue Columbine, the community. Legally, it will be treated in Colorado like a HOA, like a condo community. That's the closest thing there is to what we are building. But the other thing that happens, the other LLC is a group of some of our founding members who purchased the land. The land we already own, it is owned by that LLC, and they signed it with a charter that says it exists for the purpose of being converted to the community, the land of this community. And the original investors who purchased that land have capped themselves at a small profit. Whatever appreciation there is, which we expect to be significant, actually, maybe 2 or 3 times the value of what they paid for it, because of the circumstances around the real estate just in general in the community, which is growing and improving, and especially in that residential corridor, but also because of the rezoning itself makes the land more valuable to on the market. So the equity of that land becomes part of what we will contribute to obtain the rest of the millions of construction loans. And then what happens now, if you want to join the community, all of our members have paid a deposit into this, and when we get to the point where we can identify a builder and break ground and get a loan, our money that we've put into it converts to our down payment on our unit, essentially. So it's as if you're putting your down payment in advance. What we need to do to obtain that construction loan and break ground and hire those builders is get 29 households to as members that are committed. That shows our commitment to the community building as well as raises the funds needed to obtain that construction loan. Right now we have 12 members who with paid deposits. There were a couple of others who fell out along the 5 or 6 years it took to get to this point. And we have a number, several right now who are very serious minded who are going to be joining a members meeting. Kay, I would include as one of them, who I expect will be joining very soon. We have a few prospective members who are really close to just signing and joining. So we're getting there, but we need more. And we are starting the work, mentioned of kind of fine tuning what we mean by our values, our expectations, our guidelines, the cultural side of living in this community, as our experts and advisors are getting those schematics together and looking for the loans and looking for the builders. So we're kind of in a good window right now where potentially we could break ground next spring. We'd love to be able to do that. We need the members to get there. We will get the drawings and the schematics and the engineering and all the things we need. We have the realtor on standby, ready to list when she has those things. And her firm specializes, I didn't mention this yet, in new home builds. So people are looking for new communities. But we're also still looking for co-housers, right? This is a co-housing community. So that's what we need. The other piece of this we need is to grow our membership by that spring. So we have it. What does it take to join? The total commitment is reflected in a reservation agreement. And for anybody who is considering joining, let us know. We will send you a copy of that agreement to look at. And this is what it basically sets up, a system where we agree to be a member and we put in a deposit. Right now, the deposit amount is $27,000. That's what all of the members have committed and paid so far. Eventually, the agreement says that we will be paying by the time we get to that financing point, $178,000. Big ask, right? And we originally had set that up on a schedule of payments. But as members, we have suspended the schedule of payments. So we don't invest more than we need to keep the project building. And we have been able to pay for all of our costs of these experts and these architects with the amount that we've collected so far. So to protect ourselves from being overextended and manage our risk, we have not been collecting the rest. But we have agreed that that's what we pay. It's possible with an investor or with a favorable banking terms or with a dramatic amount of equity, or there are some ways, and again, we continue researching, that we could find alternate financing without ever putting in that amount. But that is what we've pledged and agreed to do as members, is put down that amount of money. How we are protected and what backs up our investment as future residents in this community is the land itself. The agreement that you sign says, in exchange for becoming a member and agreeing to this financial commitment and paying your deposit, you now get a place in line and it's your priority number to choose your unit in the community when it's built. If for some reason we cannot make this community work, if it falls apart, sometimes that happens to co-housing communities. I will say some communities will spend 10 years trying to get to that break ground point, and we as a group haven't had the appetite for that. We've extended. We'll see where we are in 2026, I think, and have some serious discussions. And hopefully, we're making so much progress it's not an issue, right? But if we do not raise the funds and the members that we need, if we are not able to get this community off the ground, then our agreement says that the land will be sold and the profits of the land will be used to reimburse the folks who have put money into the project. With the appreciation we've already had on the value of the land, we feel that's a pretty safe bet. So what you are putting at risk is your money tied up that you put into this project until we get to that goal or decide we're not going to make it. And we are making those decisions as members. When do we need more financing? How much more do we need to put in? Do we need to, and if we recruit some new and we keep going, then we might not need to put in, the keep the flow of cash. We've been able to fund our soft costs up to this point. And so we're on a pretty good route. From that kind of protection, already owning the land and having that system, the way it's set up is intended to protect us in case we can't make the community launch. We can't work it out. If you as an individual, this is the other thing that's in the agreement, just to kind of wrap up what it means to be a member. If you as an individual fall out of the project itself, that's happened to a couple of people already. Life changes, family changes, something happens that changes your path for the next few years and you pull out of the project. Your agreement says your money stays in the project until the last unit is sold, and then we reimburse from the community anybody who had money invested but didn't become a resident. If the community doesn't go, again, the land is sold, and those folks who put in some money, there are some folks who maybe put in an initial $7,500, for example, the first payment, never paid anything else and didn't stay in the project, they would be reimbursed down the line, after the land was sold. So that's our backup or our plan on protection. Right now is all about growing our community itself. So we will be ready, ideally, in the spring when our team of advisors and all our work is prepared, and we'll be able to, get the financing we need and break ground. Whew, that was a lot of me talking. Who's got questions? I see there are some in this chat we'll try to get to, but I will. Yeah, so the main question, projected completion date. Again, we might be, it might be spring of 2026 if we can raise the members and the cash that members bring into the project to obtain the financing. Our team will be ready as soon as that time. And it's up to us to build the interest and get committed members in. So that's the main, I would say, question that comes up when people look at the agreement or heard about the agreement is when's the date? And there isn't a hard date because we as members are making progress and taking it a step at a time. But we've got to this critical point now where we know there's actually some point in the nearish future when where we could be ready if we have enough folks. Pricing, and Michael, you mentioned this too, and I'd like to point out that we have some, I don't think we have the prices anymore. Do we have the prices still listed? We have some rough prices, and I say rough because our budget was developed a few years ago in anticipation of this lengthy time. And by Jim Leach, who is one of the most professional and experienced of all co-housing. In fact, he's retired now. He's retired since he created our budget. But our team created the budget a few years ago, knowing it would be a few years down the road. At the time that they built it, it was during COVID, and there were supply chain disruptions, and prices were high, and construction wasn't happening, and so there were some kind of mysterious factors at play, right? They probably haven't worked against us any more than anything else. So we're waiting for the final engineering spec so we can fine tune per square footage pricing. We are working from the best budget we could have drafted in expectation of it taking this long. So as far as we know, our prices are still good that are up there, and we're talking about the range. I'd say we have $620 per square foot,
Right.
which is a little, I would say a little on the higher end of market rate when I look around. But recall that what you get for that square footage is your individual unit and a share of all the common amenities. So it's like that's kind of like condo ownership in Colorado. You own your unit and a share of everything that's in that common house and on those grounds. So your value is actually based on, the whole package.
Have they, this is Lot, have they estimated operating expenses to kind of see what the HOA contribution on a monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, basis been determined or estimated at this point?
N- Um, no, they're estimated in the range. I think we say on the website somewhere about 300 to 700 is typical in Colorado. Probably it's in the middle of that based on just the home values, I would say. Um, but recall that what you get with those HOAs, and we have this in some of the marketing materials. Um, I go back to when Brian Bowen was moving out of co-housing, and he said, he didn't realize how expensive high-speed internet access was. For example, he said he paid $7 a month for hardwired, high speed as it gets internet in the co-housing community. Your costs, electricity, for example, if we're generating so much of our own, your costs are really lower because they're shared. The other thing to keep in mind is insurance costs for homeowners are much lower in a condo style community because you're responsible for insuring the interior of your property, and the HOA fees are going to maintaining insurance on the overall property, everything we call it doors and windows out, right? So there, when you look at the costs that the HOA fees are paying for, um, there's also some amount of it that's within our control if we decide, for example, to have certain hours of work share, and if we're maintaining the grounds versus contracting out the maintenance. So we've got a pretty wide estimate there, which what's typical for a condo association of the similar size in this area. But we'll know better once we, have real numbers to work from.
Thank you. Just one more question. I just, how did you find the site? I mean, what was that process like? Why
Um,
there?
Yeah, I don't think anybody on this call was involved that early. Brad has dropped off, I see, and I think he was part of that group. They began looking, I want to say in 2019. They looked and got a bid on it during the lockdowns, I think in 2021 maybe. And so they were COVID disrupted this plan, and the search for land was in that early part. By the time I joined in 2023, they were under contract on the land. So, and it closed about 2.5 years ago already. So, and they got a screaming deal, I hear. So
Yeah.
that's part of our security of this arrangement. So if you're free to raise any other questions you have. I also just want to point out, send them our way. By email is also fine. If you're in the area, or even if you want to set up a Zoom, you're not in the area, we do one-on-one meetings if you've got some deep dive questions you want to get into. I do encourage you to spend some time on the website. We've taken a different approach than most co-housing communities. We have put virtually everything that we know on that site. So you don't have to come through us. And part of that is managing. We're volunteers managing this. We don't have a paid developer staff, right, to do that kind of work. So the FAQ page, though, every time we get a question that we haven't already answered and posted, we try to make sure we update that. So there are maybe a few details that you would see that are a little out of date now that we've got the city approval. It was written before that, but it's got all kinds of details there. So reach out to us, look at that website, and if you're seriously interested, let us know. And we are happy to do one-on-one meetings. So I will say this too, we are having a members meeting in November that will be an important one for moving us forward, and especially on the cultural and community building side. And anyone who's seriously considering membership at that point, I think we'll probably have a few new members by then. But we are willing to invite in to get to know us better, because that's the other part, right? Knowing who you want to live with. Like I said, I come from a union background, so I'm like, as long as we're all committed to the same thing and we know what our common interests are, we will figure out our business. But for a lot of us, it's a lot more personal who you're going to build this community with, and so we're increasing our social activities as well, so you can kind of get to know who we are. All right. Any last thoughts, questions?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Just to reiterate what Lisa said, we're always available to answer your questions, whether by email or get on a Zoom call. If you're local, we'll happy to sit down with you, have coffee. Susan, I remember when you came out, if you're out of state, like Lot and Sherry are, let us know next time you're in the area. We'll meet you at the property and kind of do a walkthrough. So it's a big decision, and it's really helpful to be on site and really see where the community is, see what the property looks like, and what our neighborhood is going to look like. We're trying to put some of that information on our website, but I think there's no substitute than actually getting out here and picturing yourself in the location. It's a beautiful site across from Prospect Park. We've spoken about that extensively, but it's really well situated right at the foothills of Golden. We're close to Arvada, just right there in the foothills, all kinds of jumping off places for recreation. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about our Blue Columbine is really its location.
Yeah.
Lisa, anything else before I stop the recording? I'll try to have the recording up within the next day or so, and that'll be our most updated recording for our information meeting. But thanks to all who gave up not watching the World Series.
Yeah, appreciate
And hung
your
out with
time
us
and walking
instead.
us through this as well. So
That's right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.